We've all seen the plague doctor aesthetic, the bird-like mask, the long black coat, and that eerie, silent gaze. We treat it like a Halloween costume, a dark, steampunk fantasy. No 14th century, that mask was the equivalent of a hazmat suit, except it was terrifyingly useless. Now imagine you are a modern intensive care unit doctor. You have a PhD. You understand germ theory. You've seen the inside of a cell under a microscope, and you know exactly what Yersinia pestis. Suddenly, reality glitches. You are zapped back to the year 1348, standing in the middle of a muddy street in Florence or London. You aren't just a foreigner. You are a wizard from a future that shouldn't exist. Today, we're looking at the ultimate survival horror. What if a modern doctor ended up in the middle of the Black Death? Spoiler alert, it's not just about the medicine, it's about surviving a world that thinks science is a form of witchcraft. The first thing that hits our modern doctor isn't the sight of the piles of bodies, it's the smell. We talk about the Middle Ages being dirty, but we don't truly grasp the sensory assault. Medieval cities were sensory nightmares. Open sewers running down the middle of the street, rotting animal entrails from the local butcher, and thousands of humans who have never used deodorant. But for the local physicians, that smell wasn't just a nuisance, it was the disease. They believed in miasma theory, the idea that bad air caused sickness. They thought the earth was exhaling poisonous vapors. To fight it, they carried flowers and herbs, hence the pocketful of posies in the nursery rhyme. Our doctor tries to intervene. He sees a family weeping over a dying child and shouts, "No, it's not the air. It's a bacterium. It's on the fleas, which are on the rats in your cellar." The local priest looks at him with a mix of pity and suspicion. "Fleas? Rats? My son, clearly the planets are misaligned. Mars and Jupiter have entered a conjunction that has corrupted the atmosphere. Or perhaps you haven't repented for that sandwich you ate on a Friday." This is the first wall, the information gap. In 1348, medicine wasn't a science. It was a bizarre cocktail of astrology, the four humours, and divine intervention. The four humours theory, inherited from Galen and Hippocrates, taught that the body was filled with four fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Disease meant these fluids were unbalanced. The cure? To drain the excess. Our doctor watches in horror as a local medic prepares to bleed a patient who is already dehydrated and delirious from fever. To a modern doctor, this is murder. But to the medieval mind, it's the gold standard of care. If you refuse to bleed the local count, you aren't being progressive. You're being a traitor to the medical consensus of the age. You are effectively letting a noble die out of negligence. Our doctor reaches for their bag, but there are no antibiotics, no ventilators, no sterile gloves, no IV drips. This is where the God complex of modern medicine shatters into a million pieces. You know exactly what the cure is: streptomycin, gentamicin, or ciprofloxacin. But these won't be invented for another 600 years. You are a man who knows how to fix a nuclear reactor but is standing in a cave with 2 sticks. What can a modern doctor actually do with their hands? The first thing is hygiene. It sounds underwhelming, doesn't it? But in 1348, it's a revolution. The doctor begins boiling water. He starts washing his hands with lye soap. He demands that bandages be cleaned in boiling water before they touch a wound. To the locals, this looks like a bizarre, obsessive-compulsive ritual. Why waste wood to boil water when you could be praying? The concept of invisible monsters or germs is impossible for them to grasp. If you can't see it, it's either God, a demon, or a planet. Next comes quarantine. This is the only real weapon, but the medieval version of quarantine is brutal. In some cities, they would wall up the doors and windows of an infected house, leaving the healthy inside to die with the sick. Our doctor tries to implement a more humane version, isolating the sick in tents outside the city walls. But who is going to feed them? Who is going to bring them water? The social infrastructure simply doesn't exist. When the doctor suggests killing the rats, the people are confused. Rats are everywhere. They are a part of life. Suggesting that a tiny flea could kill a king sounds like a bad joke. Then there is the issue of cures. Medieval pharmacies were places of nightmares. To treat the plague, they would prescribe drinking crushed emeralds, if you were rich, or eating a paste made of dried toads and human excrement. They would press a plucked chicken's underside against the buboes, hoping the bird would absorb the poison. Our doctor tries to stop this. He uses his knowledge of anatomy to properly lance a bubo, draining the pus to relieve pressure, but he does it with a blade he has sterilized in a flame. This small act of sterilization actually saves a life. The word spreads. A miracle worker has arrived. And that's when the real trouble starts. The biggest threat to our doctor isn't the plague, it's the social reaction to it. In the mid-14th century, the Black Death was seen as the literal apocalypse. The four horsemen were riding through the streets. People weren't looking for a vaccine. They were looking for a way to appease an angry god. Enter the flagellants. These were groups of men who traveled from town to town, whipping themselves until they bled, singing hymns and begging for mercy. They were a walking biohazard. As they moved, they brought the fleas and the bacteria from one infected town to the next healthy one. If our doctor tries to stop them, he is seen as an enemy of piety. He is stopping the people from praying for their lives. Then comes the scapegoat phase. When people are dying in the thousands and God doesn't seem to be listening, they turn their eyes toward the others. In 1348, this led to horrific pogroms against Jewish communities, who were accused of poisoning the wells. Our doctor, with his strange clothes, his weird accent, and his magic water-boiling rituals, is the perfect candidate for a scapegoat. The Inquisition begins to take notice. They ask, how do you know that a person is sick before the buboes appear? How do you see the invisible in the water? Only a demon can give such sight. Our doctor has to learn theological camouflage. He has to stop saying bacteria and start saying the corruption of the soul manifesting in the flesh. He has to frame his knowledge of hygiene as cleanliness is next to godliness. He has to attribute his successes to the Holy Spirit rather than the scientific method. He is forced to become a liar to remain a healer. Now let's look at the macro level, the what-if of history. The Black Death killed between 30% and 60% of Europe's population. This massive death toll actually broke the back of feudalism. Because there were so few peasants left, the survivors could demand higher wages and more rights. The labor shortage forced the invention of labor-saving devices, eventually leading to the Renaissance and the Industrial Revolution. If our doctor is too successful, if he saves 90% of a city's population, he might accidentally destroy the future. By saving the medieval world from its pain, he keeps the oppressive feudal system alive for another 500 years. He prevents the rise of the middle class. He prevents the economic conditions that lead to the Enlightenment. By saving lives in the present, he might be killing the future of humanity. This is the ultimate time traveler's dilemma. You are there to save the child in front of you, but that child's survival might mean the world stays in the Dark Ages forever. Furthermore, Our doctor would face the biological paradox. While he knows how to fight the plague, his own body is a walking museum of modern viruses. Even a common cold from the 21st century could be a death sentence for someone in 1348 whose immune system has never encountered it. He might be trying to cure the plague while accidentally starting a new epidemic of a mutated flu. As the years pass in this timeline, the Doctor becomes a legend. He is the white monk or the clean hermit. He spends his days teaching people how to make simple soap and why they shouldn't throw their waste into the drinking water. He can't build a microscope, but he can teach the principles of optics. He can't make penicillin, but he can show them how to use certain molds and honey to prevent infection in wounds. He becomes a bridge between two worlds, but he is a bridge that no one can fully cross. So, would a modern doctor survive? Honestly, the odds are against him. Eventually, he would run out of luck. A jealous local medic or a suspicious bishop would decide that his miracles are too consistent to be anything other than a pact with the devil. He would likely end his days at the stake, watching the smoke rise, knowing that the people burning him are the very ones he tried to save. But the attempt would reveal the most important lesson of history. Progress isn't just about having the right answers. It isn't just about facts or technology. It's about the social infrastructure of knowledge. You can have all the truth in the world, but if the society around you isn't ready to hear it, you are just a madman shouting at the clouds. The Black Death ended because it ran out of victims and because society was forced to change its entire structure to survive. Our doctor would just be a footnote, a ghost from a future that had to be built on the bones of the world he couldn't save. And maybe, just maybe, in some dusty archive in the Vatican, there would remain a strange parchment written by a mad physician who claimed that the world was run by tiny, invisible bugs, and that one day men would fly through the air and talk to each other through glowing pieces of glass.